My goodness, don't you remember? When you first went to school, it was kindergarten, and the whole idea was to get ready for first grade. Then first led to second, second to third, and on it went. Always getting ready for what came next. Then came high school, a big moment, we were told. You had to start thinking seriously now. Prepare for college. Choose the right track. Keep your scores high. Keep climbing. And if you did well enough, you got into university. And there the pattern continued. You were preparing again, preparing for the world, preparing for your future. And when you finally stepped out into that world, it was still the same rhythm. Another ladder, another race, another next. Then one day, maybe at 40, maybe earlier, maybe later, you pause. You look around. And quietly, without telling anyone, you think to yourself, is this it? You feel roughly the same as you always have. A little more tired, perhaps. A little more uncertain. And somewhere inside, you wonder if you've been chasing something that was never really there. And yet, they say, you must go on. You must live. You must survive. It is your duty. It is necessary. Because it just is. But that has never quite sat right, has it? So what is it we've really been doing? And what is it we've really missed? You see, one of the peculiar things about human beings is that we take life far too seriously. We've been brought up to believe that life is something you endure, something you suffer through with grim determination until you finally reach the reward, whatever that may be. But I'd like to suggest an entirely different approach. Suppose, just for a moment, that life is not a journey, not a pilgrimage, not a test, not a problem to be solved. Suppose it is a game, or better, a play. Now, when we speak of games, we're not talking about competitions to the death. A proper game is one that has just enough structure to keep it interesting and just enough uncertainty to keep it alive. Take tic-tac-toe. Utterly dull once you know the trick. You win every time you start, and so there's no play left in it, no possibility, no flow. At the other end of the scale, try three-dimensional chess. Staggeringly complex, played on 8 boards, stacked like floors in a building. Most of us give up before the first move. It's too much. What we seek is that curious middle ground. Games like poker, or bridge, or chess, there's an interplay of chance and skill, of mind and mystery. You can never quite master them, but they never feel out of reach. And in just this way, life is best lived as a balance between what is known and what is not, between control and surprise. Predict too much and the game dies. Let go of everything and the game dissolves. It is that dancing edge we're after, the razor's edge between order and chaos. That's where the music plays. That's where the adventure begins. Now, there's something rather odd about us. On the one hand, we crave security. We want to know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we build our lives around plans and predictions. But on the other hand, the very moment life becomes completely predictable, we begin to lose interest. Just imagine you went to a fortune teller who could, with absolute accuracy, tell you everything that will happen to you. When you'll fall in love, when you'll grow ill, what day you'll die, and what words you'll hear in your final breath. Would you want to know? For most people, something in them hesitates. Because to know the future in its entirety is to drain life of all surprise. It's like reading the last page of a novel before you've started the first chapter. There's no fun in that, no sparkle, no curiosity. This is why people love games. A good game has an outcome, that is uncertain. You can guess, you can strategize, but you don't really know how it will end. And that not knowing, that possibility, is what keeps us involved. The same is true of life. When the future becomes too defined, too rigid, too locked in, it loses its flavor. The more predictable it becomes, the more mechanical we feel. And sooner or later, we begin to wonder what the point is. The fascination lies in the play itself, not the ending. The mystery, not the outcome. So if we were ever given the keys to absolute certainty, we'd throw them away in secret. Because something deep in the human spirit prefers adventure to safety, prefers the open sea to the harbor, even with all the storms that may come. Now then, the real magic begins when we notice this balance between what we control and what we allow to happen. Because life, like any great art, is not a matter of total precision. It is not an engineer's blueprint. It is more like a dance or a jazz improvisation where the structure exists only to let the unexpected move with grace. A great artist, you see, is not simply a master of technique. That is merely the beginning. What makes an artist great is the willingness to surrender. To allow something in that is not calculated, not planned, not clean. Take the brush of a Chinese calligrapher. Years of practice have trained the hand, and yet the moment of creation is full of risk. The ink may run dry halfway through a stroke, the paper may bleed, the line may wobble, and it is precisely in that moment where control slips, just slightly, that beauty comes alive. They call it the controlled accident. It is the flicker of chaos within the frame, a dash of wildness inside the rule. The same is true of music. Listen to Bach. Beneath the stately harmonies, there is a mischievous little whisper, a subtle bending of form, just enough to surprise the ear, to wake the soul. And so it is with life. If you try to control every detail, if you seek to perfect every move, you end up with something dead, mechanical, predictable. But if you can master the form just enough to let it go, if you can let the accident slip in without fear, then suddenly the whole thing becomes play. And in that play, we come alive. Now you begin to see why this deep craving for order, for regulation, for everything to be properly labeled and filed, carries with it a hidden danger. For the more we attempt to make life secure, the more we begin to smother it. It always begins innocently enough. Few rules here, precaution there. Someone behaves badly, and so we draw up a law. Someone else finds a way around it, and so we create a form, and then another to accompany that one, and soon we are so entangled in our efforts to be safe that we have forgotten how to live. It was Orwell, wasn't it? Who imagined a world where everything was watched, where every word, every step, every thought was accounted for, a world of complete security. But no one danced there. No one laughed freely. That is what happens when control becomes the master instead of the servant. We trade freedom for safety, spontaneity for structure, and in the end, we create a world that may be efficient, but is no longer alive. You see, to be completely safe is to be completely dead. Nothing moves. Nothing changes. The unknown is eliminated, and with it the very spark that makes life worth the trouble. And yet we go on believing that if only we could make one more rule, build one more system, then we will finally be secure. But life is not a system to be managed. It is a rhythm to be danced. And without that element of risk, of surprise, of not knowing, the music stops. A world without risk may be orderly, but it will never be joyful. Now let us look for a moment at the artist, the painter, the poet, the musician, because in them we find a clue not just about art, but about how to live. A true artist does not seek perfection. That is the concern of the machine. What the artist seeks is life. And life, as you may have noticed, is always just a little untidy. Consider a brushstroke that runs dry halfway across the page. In a beginner's hand, it is a mistake. But in the hand of a master, it is character, it is movement, it is breath. That little imperfection gives the whole thing soul. And this, you see, is the difference between a technician and a creator. The technician controls everything. The creator allows the unknown to enter the room. They invite the accident, and then they frame it so it becomes meaningful. A jazz musician does not play notes from a chart. He listens, he responds. He takes the shape of the moment and makes music with it. He does not fear the wrong note, because the wrong note, if embraced, becomes part of the rhythm. And you may notice this principle even in the structure of the cosmos. The stars do not form perfect grids in the sky. The waves do not crash in even intervals. And yet the beauty is undeniable. So why do we insist that our lives must be tidy and controlled? Why do we not trust that something beautiful may emerge when we let go? Life is not meant to be arranged like a cabinet. It is meant to be danced like a fire. And the fire only dances when the wind is free to move through it. Now here is where things become especially curious. Because not only do we try to control the world around us, but we also try, with great effort, to control ourselves. And failing that, we turn to controlling one another. This stems, I think, from a very old suspicion. The idea that human nature is not to be trusted, that beneath the surface of politeness and religion there lurks something quite dangerous, a brute, an animal, a fraud. This is the legacy of the doctrine of original sin. The belief that, left to our own devices, we will lie, cheat, steal, and bring the roof crashing down on our own heads. And so we invent systems of morality, codes of behavior, and punishments to keep the beast in its cage. But not everyone saw it that way. In China, long before the birth of Christ, Confucius suggested something very different. He spoke of human-heartedness, not righteousness, not obedience, but a kind of deep, natural kindness that flows from within when it is not suppressed. And when asked to define it, he refused. He said, "You already know what it is." Now that is very interesting, because it suggests that what we call virtue is not something imposed from above, but something that arises naturally when we stop trying to be righteous. Righteousness, you see, can be far more dangerous than greed. The greedy man may steal from you, but the righteous man will destroy you in the name of principle. So, perhaps we should look again at this fear of our own nature. Perhaps if we trust it, something far more graceful begins to move. The flower does not need to be told how to bloom, nor the wave how to break, nor the heart how to love. So let us not be too eager to tie it all down. Not every thread must be knotted, not every path must be lit. Life was never meant to be solved like a puzzle. It was meant to be entered like a forest, with wide eyes and bare feet, with a willingness to get a little lost. And if you demand certainty before you move, you will never move. If you wait until it all makes sense, you will wait forever. Because what makes life beautiful is precisely that it does not wait for our understanding. It moves, it stumbles, it flows. You do not play a game to finish it. You play because the playing itself is delightful. Because there is laughter in not knowing, and joy in trying, and even grace in the fall. So stop trying to win at life. There is nothing to win. There is only this trembling moment, this pattern unfolding, this strange and marvelous dance where you never quite know what will happen next, which is precisely the charm of the whole thing, because to be completely safe is to be completely dead. And you, my friend, were not born for safety. You were born for the game.